Good evening, my name is KACPER Paradowski and you're watching Poland Daily News. Today's hot topic in Poland is the overhaul of the judiciary system, which has seen little reform since the communist days 30 years ago. Many pose the question whether Poland is a democracy or rather a judeocracy. Politicians of the ruling camp have no doubt that recent actions of part of the judicial community based on a ruling by the European Court of Justice might lead to legal anarchy. The opposition in turn argues that the new proposed amendment to the legislation regulating the structure of the court system is of repressive nature that undermines the legal order.
Who, according to the Constitution and according to the recent verdict of the European Court of Justice, has the right to nominate new judges? We have to ask this fundamental question. In my opinion, such a right does not belong to a group of Supreme Court judges. It is a right reserved for the Polish president. What is happening right now, in my opinion, is an attempt to change Poland's political system from democracy to judiciocracy. The basic rule in democratic countries is that judges do not comment on political matters. This is the norm, which is observed in democracies and first of all in the Western Europe. Judges do not take part in political actions just because of this, so later, when they deal with matters dealing with political issues, there is no doubt they are impartial. It is necessary for judges to be unbiased in the eyes of ordinary citizens. This is very important.
The proposed amendment is not on the agenda of the coming parliament session. Despite that, the new Speaker of the Senate, who is from the opposition party, announced that he will make sure that he receives the opinion of international experts, have public hearings on the matter, and even encourage Poles to street protests. In defense against the judicial reform, including street protests, stood former President Lech Walesa and former Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Donald Tusk also stated that the so-called policy of taking the streets and international intervention, called for some time ago by the leading opposition politician Grzegorz Schetyna, was correct and effective, yielded necessary results, and might play a positive role in Poland's history.
On Friday, Śpiewak was sentenced by the Warsaw District Court to pay a fine to Bogumiła Górnikowska-Ćwiąkalska, the daughter of the former Minister of Justice. The case concerned an act of defamation allegedly committed by Śpiewak, who had made public her participation in the reprivatization of the tenement house on Joteyki street. The verdict paradoxically means that the activist who revealed the reprivatization scandal in Warsaw is so far the only one to have been sentenced in connection to it.
Śpiewak has announced that he's going to file a request for clemency to the Chancellery of the President of Poland. He met with President Andrzej Duda yesterday.
If a motion is filed, then the case will be investigated. This is a shocking case, because it was a man who fought for justice.
The Prime Minister of Poland, Mateusz Morawiecki, took the floor in this matter on Saturday.
It is worth mentioning one point in this matter. The lawyer was supposed to be a superintendent of a person at the age of 118. No comments. Themis, a symbol of impartiality, wears a blindfold. Friends and enemies have to be judged the same. A person who fights for independence as hard as Mr. Śpiewak should get respect, a medal and a good word. Finding him guilty is against social sense of justice and a belief that he was doing what he was doing for the common good.
Today, civic platform politicians didn't want to comment on the judge's ruling. On the other hand, law and justice politicians see a solution for this case by filing a request for clemency.
In my opinion, a request for clemency should be filed.
The district court upheld the judgment of the regional court, which was ruled in mid-January 2019. The private indictment of defamation concerned, among the others, an entry published by Śpiewak in October 2017 on Twitter, in which he wrote that the daughter of Minister Ćwiąkalski took over a tenement house in the Ochota district of Warsaw by the 118-year-old curator in 2010.
The judges wanted to prove that the daughter of Ćwiąkalski can't be untouchable. The paradox is that Mr. Śpiewak was trying to defend the Warsaw inhabitants who could have lost their houses because of a reprivatization. He became a victim.
Śpiewak has announced that he's going to file a request for clemency to the President of Poland later this week. At the same time, he will also submit a request to the Ombudsman and the Minister of Justice to submit a cassation complaint to the Supreme Court.
Today is the 38th anniversary of the deadly attack by the Communist Secret Service on striking coal miners in the Wujek mine. 9 men were killed and 23 were injured. The massacre of the miners in Katowice was the deadliest event during the 1981 martial law in Poland, which saw more than 100 dissidents killed when General Jaruzelski military junta tried to crush the Solidarity movement. Mayors of the 4 capital cities in the Visegrad Group, Warsaw, Budapest, Prague and Bratislava, gathered today at the Central European University in Budapest to strike an alliance obliging the city halls in the 4 capitals to work together with the aim of convincing the EU to bypass national governments and pay out EU funds directly to local governments which are in opposition to their governments.
The meeting symbolically took place in the George Soros-funded Central European University in Budapest, which is in the process of relocating to Vienna, as conservative Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has introduced laws which made it impossible for the American liberal billionaire and political activist university to remain in the country. The new liberal mayor of Budapest argued that local governments can make better use of EU funds than national governments. Independent of the serious problems regarding the right usage of funds in the region, these issues make the old adage of think global, act local especially acute. Therefore, we think that it is in the interest of the EU that in the whole of Europe these direct financial mechanisms should be launched and they can expect results in return. I am convinced that these cities can do miracles in the areas of climate change and innovation. The mayor of Warsaw stated that EU funds should be slushed straight to local governments, as the conservative national governments often withhold money from the metropolitan regions.
We were allocating money to the poorer regions, which needed to catch up, and of course we have to do it. We have to concentrate on those. But we also were allocating money to the cities as they were engines of growth. And we have 12 engines of growth in Poland, as the metropolitan areas are very, very important. Similarly, in the countries like the Czech Republic or Hungary or Slovakia, where sometimes governments have ideas of actually taking money away from the cities for political reasons.
Some EU member states say that disbursement of EU funds for infrastructure and other projects should hinge on respect for democratic standards and the rule of law, accusing the conservative governments in the Visegrad Group of breaking the rules. The liberal mayors want to take advantage of the situation and hope to gain funds at the expense of national governments.
That is all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for Poland Daily Business. Good night.